Welcome to the Fierce and Fit Mentor Podcast. I'm your host, Clarice Yao, a holistic health coach dedicated to helping women over 40 achieve their fittest, fiercest selves. Each week, we'll dive deep into the unique challenges of menopause, including belly fat, weight gain, muscle building, hormonal imbalances, and more. These episodes are recorded live from my free Facebook group, Fierce Women Sculpting Powerful Bodies and Champion Mindsets. Be sure to check the link in the show notes to join our incredible community and access free content, challenges, and resources designed just for you. All right, so this is live number 146. This is diving into the fascinating world of fat metabolism and reducing the pooch. Okay, so I know this is going to be a super popular live. As everyone wants to reduce their belly fat. It's very few people I know who doesn't want to. And usually even some fit people struggle with fat, belly fat, particularly in that area. How many of you on here are struggling to lose belly fat? So put your hands up, or I guess put it below. How many of you are actually struggling to lose belly fat on here? So put it below, because I feel like this is majority of people, right? So now, even guys, because even guys on Instagram was like, I want to watch your live. I'm like, yes, okay, once it's uploaded to YouTube, it will be there. By the way, if you guys watch it on YouTube, ideally I want the live up the next day, but it's just not happening right now. So if you miss my live, sometimes you're going to have to wait a few days, depending on how fast my team works. So it's always better to jump in live here, to be honest, because you could be waiting 4 or 5 days for it to appear on YouTube. We're hoping to become more efficient, but at this point, it is going to be that. So if you know of people who really want to watch this live, it's better they come live, or you tag them on this on the live when I am actually here on Wednesday or Thursday. Okay. Yeah, so lots of people are struggling with this, and it's going to be very interesting. I'm going to be going to some scientific things with you guys. So for some of you, it may go over your head. For some of you, maybe take some notes. And for others, it may be just fascinating. I find this area super fascinating. So before we go into it, we're going to start with our wins. So again, if you're joining me here on YouTube, this is the Fierce Woman community where we sculpt powerful bodies and champion mindsets. Okay. So first of all, I want to give a shout out to 2 new ladies who are in the FFF group coaching program. We are starting this Friday, so I'm super excited for all our Fierce Factor Formula ladies. Joyce Arabor, I might have said your last name a little bit wrong. She's originally from Nigeria, but she just joined the FFF program, and she has twin girls that are both 9 years old. And she just said for the first, 9 years of her life, she had no life. And now she feels like it's time for her, time to really take care of herself. And she wants to be truly healthy, but also to look fabulous in outfits. She's a fashionista. So Joyce, I am very excited for you. And then as well, give hearts to also Lisa Bailey Wilson. Lisa, if you're on here, she did the FFF program 2 years ago, and she actually maintained it really well for a while. But then, her mom unfortunately passed away, and she went through a lot of things. And so she's back for round 2, and she's super excited to be fit and fierce over 60, because when she did her FFF program, she was just turning 60, and she got into like the best shape of her life. So she is gunning to get back to that best shape in her life. And I know Phyllis, you're on here as well. Phyllis is already a part of the FF program starting on Friday, and she's over 70. So I just love this because we can help women of all age ranges between 40 to 70 to help you guys achieve your fittest self. So give lots of hearts to the FFF group coaching program. We are very excited for you guys to start. Awesome. So let's start first with what is fat metabolism. So I'm just going to go into like a really quick rundown of that first before we dive into some specific things in regards to belly fat. Okay. I see lots of people struggle with belly fat. You guys indicated at the beginning. Hi, Bonnie. Good to see you. So the first thing is fat metabolism is basically fat or lipid metabolism. Okay. So it's the process by which the body actually breaks down fat molecules for energy. Okay. So there's several steps involved in fat metabolism. So we're going to go through this together. This part is just more a scientific biological basis, and then we're going to talk about some of the specifics. So first of all, lipolysis is where you take stored fat molecules, okay, triglycerides, and you break it down into fatty acids and glycerol, okay? Now, how do you break down the fat? So there's actually a couple hormones involved with this, okay? So the hormones involved with this is epinephrine and norepinephrine, which are part of the stress response system, okay? But we're going to talk about this. So the hormones, epinephrine or adrenaline, if you want to call it, or noradrenaline, they stimulate lipolysis and they bind to receptors in these fat cells, okay? This activates an enzyme called lipase, and lipase then comes into the triglyceride and breaks it down into fatty acids and glycerol. Okay, now before I continue with like the steps here, when your body goes through different types of stressors within it, it will lead to some of the breakdowns in your body, or let's say like if it doesn't have the right energy sources, then it will maybe tap fat stores, right? Regardless, is that the receptors are responding to epinephrine, norepinephrine, okay? So the second thing is once it breaks down into fatty acids and glycerol from triglycerides, okay, is then what happens is it needs to be released into the bloodstream, okay? So that's called the fatty acid release. So it goes from the broken triglycerides, right? The fatty acids and glycerol. It gets released into the bloodstream. It gets moved into the liver and muscles for energy production, okay? Once it moves into the muscle cells and liver and all of that, it needs to go through another series of biochemical reactions. In this biochemical reaction, okay, it needs to go through a process called oxidation. Oh, thank you, Oshone. I know, I like it. It's actually a dress that I can dance in. It's very exciting. You will see this later when I dance. But yeah, so it goes through a series of biochemical reactions known as beta oxidation. So in this beta oxidation cycle, when the glycerol and the fatty acids, it has to enter something called the citric acid cycle or the Krebs cycle. And some of you are like, I don't even understand what you're saying. It's okay. You don't have to fully understand this. Those of you who are more biology geek nerds, you might understand. When it enters the Krebs cycle, it goes into your cell's ATP system. So your cell's ATP system is where the energy is generated. Okay. So in order to use the fat, it needs to be put into the Krebs cycle for your body to be used, right? And then the ATP that happens, the energy that is kind of like produced from that, will then help, obviously, all your cellular processes like muscle contraction, cellular maintenance, thermogenesis, heat being released from your body, all of that, okay? So when does fatty acids get used typically? So you guys might know this. Fatty acids typically get used during prolonged periods of low to moderate intensity exercise, or if you are very low in resource from the other types of molecules. So like when you're fasting or things like that, when your glycogen stores are depleted, it will use your fatty acids, okay? So you're like, okay, this is all so complicated. I'm like feeling like I'm back in biology class, or those of you who've taken personal training courses, nutrition courses, maybe this is just a review. The only thing I wanted to say before Jennifer's like nursing school all over again. Yay, woohoo. The only thing I'll say about this is just so you understand a little bit before I go into more specific details of belly fat, okay? So it's that you have to understand that either you're going to have, like the body taking in from external sources, like your food you're eating, and it's in excess, and then it's moving it into this like fat oxidation cycling, or it's going to take from your stored fat, right? Most of us are concerned with the fat on our body or the belly fat that's in your body, right? So that's why I spoke about how it's taking from stored fat, and then it needs to go through these series of chemical processes to break down and be moved into the bloodstream and be moved into muscle and the liver, and then go through an ATP cycle. It is why, for those of you who are watching, losing fat is a lot harder. It is not your body's preferential source of energy,
Okay, it is so much easier for it to use sugar, to use carbs, to potentially even possibly go for protein in your body. Losing fat is much harder. There's a much more complex system involved. And that is me simplifying it for you. If I went into more detail, you guys would be like falling asleep in lecture, basically. Right? So like you're like, okay, so this is really complex. Yes. So we just have to keep this in mind. So let's actually then dive into why is belly fat hard to lose, okay? So we're going to start with, there's a number of things I'm going to talk about, and there's 2 to 3 points that I'm going to really expand on that is going to challenge your brain. Unless maybe you're a doctor already on here. If you're a doctor, if you're a nurse, you might be like, hey, like I forgot about this. I learned this 10, 15 years or 25 years ago. Okay. So first of all, the easy one, we'll start with the easy one. The first easy one is genetic predisposition. Okay, so yes, at the very base, there is going to be some genetic factors involved. Where you store fat, where you lose fat, and at like which one goes first, where do you lose it first? Uh, that is genetically predetermined. So unfortunately, there are some people who have more of a genetic predisposition to store fat towards maybe their belly or certain areas in their body. That is a genetic predisposition. However, that is only a small part, and everything else comes after in the epigenetics. Epigenetics is what does your genes express due to the lifestyle choices you make, right? So we can kind of go, okay, well, there's just some genetic factors. Okay, I agree on some of this. Okay. So the second thing is to talk about adipocyte receptor sensitivity. Okay. So this part is going to be a little bit more tricky, and it's going to be really eye-opening for a lot of you. So adipocytes, your fat cells, have receptors that regulate the release of stored fat. They have certain receptors on these fat cells, okay? The fat cells within your abdominal region have the higher density of alpha-2 androgenic receptors. I spoke about this last year in one of my belly fat lives. These alpha-2 androgenic receptors actually inhibit lipolysis, which I talked about what lipolysis is above, which is the release of triglycerides, the breaking into fatty acids and glycerol. So the alpha-2 androgenic receptors actually inhibit lipolysis. So in belly fat, there is a higher abundance of these receptors, which means that it is much harder to lose belly fat because there's more alpha-2 androgenic receptors. And when they are present, they kind of stall or stop the lipolysis process, okay? Now, you might ask why, and there's many scientific things, and there's a lot of reasons. But in a simple term in regards to this is that belly fat is actually regarded by your body as a separate organ. And I spoke about this last year as well. That's why it's actually very hard to lose if you gain it. And it is actually very dangerous as well. So if your body regards belly fat as a separate organ, it actually has protection mechanisms involved to protect your organ, right? Like it has protective mechanisms to protect your heart, to protect your liver, to protect all of these things. And unfortunately, your body also detects belly fat in the region as a separate organ because of the way those cells are, and they are different kinds of cells, and they sit so close to your organs. Okay, so the body actually prevents you from losing belly fat. It doesn't want you to lose belly fat. And I know a lot of you go like, what? And answers your question, why belly fat is a lot harder to lose. Okay, because of the propensity of alpha-2 androgenic receptors and other pathways, which I'm simplifying, and we really cannot get to the craziness of this because you would be biology 500 class, basically. Your body just has these signals that it won't let you drop it as easily, okay? Because it's protecting it like an organ, okay? So let's talk a little bit about this more. I see Sonia jumped in and Talisa as well. Awesome. So androgenic receptors, what are they? When I talk about alpha-2 androgenic receptors being in your belly fat, so androgenic receptors are all over your body. Androgenic receptors are receptors for neurotransmitters and for receiving signals from different hormones. And particularly androgenic receptors are to receive signals from adrenaline and norepinephrine. Okay. They respond to that hormone, which I spoke earlier about. Okay. So here's the thing is you need it actually all over your body because these receptors create a whole cycle of signals in your body for different things to happen. Okay. So there are different kinds of androgenic receptors that we want to be aware of, okay? So if you are getting lost, again, I told you this is going to be a very scientific live. Don't worry, at the very end, I'm going to talk about things we can do. But I think this is why I said this is really important. You understand some of the base of this, okay? So the androgenic receptors, okay, occur throughout your body. There are different types. There are different types throughout your body, and they are broken down into three subclasses, which are beta androgenic receptors. There's three types. So you don't have to worry about all of them. There is beta 1, beta 2, and beta 3. Beta 1 androgenic receptors are predominantly found in your heart. And yes, you need that by you because if you have to run away from the bear or your heart needs to pump harder, you need it to respond to epinephrine, norepinephrine. It needs to respond. Yes, very important. So you need beta 1 androgenic receptors. Beta 2 androgenic receptors occur more in your smooth muscles, your bronchioles, your blood vessels, your gastrointestinal tract, as well as your muscles. Okay. So beta 2 androgenic receptors are also important because they relate to the contraction of your muscles and what you need to do to get things moving in your body. Again, responding to epinephrine and norepinephrine. These are all really important. So then you're like, okay, this is so confusing. Then what about fat? Okay, so we're getting there. Beta 3 androgenic receptors are the ones found in adipose tissue, okay? Particularly beta 3 are found in a little bit in white adipose tissue and brown adipocyte tissues, which I spoke about before. Again, if you're getting lost, it's okay. There's other lives that I've done that are fat-based lives. I did one on brown fat versus white fat. Beta 3 androgenic receptors are higher within brown fat because what they do is they actually take in the signals from epinephrine and norepinephrine, and they make your body like shake and shiver and produce heat when it's super cold. That's why if you have more prevalence of brown fat, it is good. It's metabolically active, okay? It's more metabolically active. So the thing is, you're like, this is so confusing is what I'm trying to get across is your body has different beta, androgenic receptors all across the body for different reasons. But your belly fat has the highest predominance of alpha androgenic receptors, which I mentioned then stops lipolysis. What you want is you want to potentially stimulate more activation of beta 3 receptors because beta 3 receptors actually increase lipolysis and improve thermogenesis in your body. So you want to have potentially more activation of beta 3 receptors and you want to minimize as much as the alpha androgenic receptors as much as possible. Like you can't stop the receptors in your belly fat, but maybe we can look at how you can increase beta androgenic receptor activation. So the next thing is to another reason why belly fat is really hard to lose is blood flow and circulation. So your belly fat area actually has lower blood flow compared to other parts of your body. So the reduced blood flow can limit the delivery of oxygen and nutrients to that area, to your fat cells in the belly area, which means that it kind of has less likelihood of breaking down to become energy. So if your belly fat area, particularly if you have more and more of it, you just don't get the same amount of blood flow and circulation there. So it makes it even harder to break down. Okay, so that's another reason why belly fat is very difficult to lose. The fourth reason is hormonal influences. Okay, hormonal influences, I spoken a lot about, done lives about hormones. And I think just a couple weeks ago, I did all about hormones. And yeah, a lot of you were just fascinated with like the nutrition side of things on that. But 3 hormones really affect belly fat storage. Okay. 3 hormones really affect this.
If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. Listening on Spotify, tap that 5-star rating. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave a quick review. It really helps the show reach more women.
So 3 hormones affect belly fat storage, and this is cortisol, insulin, and estrogen. Okay. We're going to speak a little bit about each one, why this really impacts your belly fat hormone. Okay. Or sorry, belly fat storage. Okay. So estrogen. So the role of estrogen is to store fat. One of the roles of it. Okay. So the higher levels of estrogen you have promotes more fat storage in your body, particularly in younger women, more like in, like the breasts, the hips, the buttocks. So that's why when you're younger, those of you who remember, you guys had a nicer butt, and as you age, you seem to lose your butt. So when you have higher levels of estrogen, you do actually store fat storage a little bit more. But as you hit into menopause and estrogen declines, during menopause, when your estrogen starts to decline, it will cause your visceral fat and abdominal fat to increase because when you have less estrogen, your androgen hormones are higher, and androgen hormones tell fat to go to the middle. Also, your fat cells has estrogen receptors. Okay, so your fat cells have estrogen receptors. So when there is higher estrogen, it actually improves. Okay, so when you have higher estrogen, it actually improves lipolysis, fat breakdown, and helps regulate adipose tissue inflammation. So it regulates inflammation in your body well. So when you have a decrease of estrogen in your body, which most of you who are in menopause or moving into that stage, decreased estrogen levels will then contribute to impaired fat metabolism and increased abdominal storage. So because you have less in those fat cells, you just cannot metabolize them. You can't break it down as much, and you do not have the ability to regulate inflammation in your fat cells. So that's why I always speak about inflammation, because as you decline in estrogen, you just will have more and more higher chances of inflammation in your body, right? So yes, I see lots of people popping in. Barbara, Sandra, yes, Emily, Elizabeth, awesome. Yeah, Shannon, especially have 2 C-sections in menopause. Yeah, exactly. And then Debbie says, after menopause, do we still have less or no estrogen? You have less. I wouldn't say you absolutely have no estrogen, but very low levels, basically, after menopause, very low levels. That's why, Debbie, as you know, losing belly fat is extremely hard. And there's many things involved with this, but belly fat is going to be harder and harder to lose, right? And little things you do, Debbie, because Debbie is over 60, 65, Debbie. So you can't regulate your inflammation in your body as well. And you really have to be careful about the things we do, which is what I will talk about later in the live, right? So, so the next hormone is to talk about cortisol. So cortisol, I've spoken a lot about, but we need to understand that what is cortisol doing? So elevated cortisol is associated with abdominal obesity, and cortisol promotes fat storage in the abdominal region by stimulating fat synthesis, which is lipogenesis, and inhibits lipolysis, which is fat breakdown. So if you remember at the beginning of the live, I spoke about the process of fat metabolism. Yes, 65. Yes, Debbie. Still young and beautiful and competing at her dance competitions, Debbie. But I spoke at the beginning of the live about lipolysis, which is the breakdown of fat, right? So listen carefully. Cortisol promotes lipogenesis, which is stimulates fat synthesis, and cortisol inhibits lipolysis, which is fat breakdown, which is exactly what you don't want, right? You're like, oh, no, I don't want to like stop myself from being able to break down fat, and now it's going to create more fat in my body. And this is why we speak a lot about making sure cortisol is really controlled through many holistic approaches that I talk about within my programs, right? So yeah, I see hot grandma. She just competed actually on the weekend. Debbie, didn't you get 2 first gold medals at her dance competition, Debbie? Woohoo! Give her lots of hearts for that. Awesome. So cortisol also contributes to insulin resistance, okay? So cortisol adds to your insulin resistance, which means your insulin becomes less responsive to to your body, which means you cannot uptake glucose as well. So the correlation between cortisol and insulin resistance is really high. So again, we're going to talk about the reason why you really have to control all of these things, okay? Cortisol, the presence of high cortisol will result in higher fat storage, okay? So the third hormone is insulin, okay? So insulin, the role of insulin is it's produced by the pancreas, and when it is secreted, it is there to regulate blood sugar level, and then it promotes some fat storage, okay? So after a meal, your insulin is released and your cells want to uptake the glucose, okay? But with age, as you age, all of you who are listening, you become less sensitive to the effects of insulin. So as any of you who are aging right now, you are not going to respond to insulin the same way you did when you were younger, okay? This leads to insulin resistance, which means that if your body cannot uptake the glucose from the bloodstream, this will increase your fat deposit. It can increase dyslipidemia, which means abnormal lipid levels, and metabolic syndromes. So this all connects. Basically, as you age, your insulin level gets impacted in its sensitivity. If you have higher cortisol, cortisol further exacerbates your insulin resistance, and decreased estrogen levels also then impair insulin sensitivity. And this then contributes to more abdominal fat. Okay, so this, as you guys can hear, I see a lot of you guys congratulating Debbie. That's awesome. Hi, Maxine. Thanks for joining in. So in terms of really understanding the 3 hormones, which is your estrogen, insulin, and cortisol, these 3 hormones really play an interlinking role to why you have more potential for belly fat as you age. Okay, yeah, what a mess, exactly. And so the key is understanding why. First, I'm very big on this because instead of people just going like, oh, I just can't get rid of my belly fat, it's so hard. Why is it so hard to get rid of it? It is really important to understand how many factors are involved with it. And for those of you who are watching, as you guys age and you get frustrated, you have more belly fat, the pooch, it's going over your jeans, you can't zip it up, all this type of stuff that's happening. It does come down to, yes, you need to eat healthy, but which I'm going to talk about, but like it's more than just like eating less or starving yourself or calorie restricting. It's so much more complex, as you can understand, which is why I speak about you need to have a very holistic approach to understanding how to take down belly fat. Okay, so yeah, 3 things compound and make it hard. Exactly. Yes. Hi, Marilyn. Thanks for joining in. Okay, so now we're gonna continue on, and then I'll talk about strategies. So this is still a part of the 6 points I'm making about why belly fat is really hard to lose and helping you understand the why behind it. Okay, so number 5 is that as you age, you will have a loss of muscle mass, right? We all know this. As you age, you will lose muscle mass. And so this starts to relate to those of you who are gaining belly fat, and then you're trying to calorie restrict or, whatever, starve yourself. This is very, very dangerous if you don't actually pair yourself with strength training. And now I'm speaking to kind of a 50-50 population. Some of you work out a lot, some of you don't work out enough. Some of you know who you are. Some of you don't work out enough. Some of you work out a lot, which is great. But if you try to lose weight as you age without strength training, you're doing yourself a massive disservice, because what you're doing is you're going to start to burn off muscle mass at an even more rapid rate. When muscle mass starts to drop, you are going to create a lowered metabolism, which is going to lead to an increase in fat deposit in your body. And we already spoke about all the reasons above of why, as you age, you will deposit more fat into your midsection due to the changing hormones and due to different expression of androgenic receptors. Okay, so yes, I know some of you say you gotta pick that up, Debbie. Yeah, you gotta work those muscles. Okay, belly, you are going down. I love it, Lisa. So yeah, so good. I don't work out enough, Janet. Yeah, thank you for being honest, which is a lot of people. They do a lot of cardio, but they don't strength train. And what I'm saying to you is, if you don't actually work on building muscle, and I actually am not getting it into this live, but when you actually utilize your muscles, actually, I will. Actually, I have a point later about this. You create a cascade of hormonal effects in your body that increases the possibility of using fat metabolism. So you need to be training those muscles. Okay. You need to be training those muscles. And then number six, reason why belly fat is harder to lose is that as you age, for a lot of people, they kind of just like go into this like auto mode in terms of dietary choices. They're stressed all the time. They're running around. They don't get enough sleep. They think about all of these things. And so I'm going to say lifestyle factors. If you have a very stressed lifestyle, like Melanie, I know you're a crisis intervention worker, or some of you that I'm speaking to, if you have a very stressed lifestyle, these are all going to contribute back to putting fat in the belly area. And depending on your expression of which androgenic, like how much androgenic receptors you have, maybe of the alpha, where it's located, the alpha androgenic receptors I spoke about earlier, could relate to where you're depositing fat more. Some of you, I know you struggle with a lot of belly fat, but some of you also struggle a lot in maybe the thighs. So some of that is genetic, but it kind of comes back to what I said, where is it being expressed in your body, right? So pump that iron, ladies. Exactly. I love that. I love that. So let me yes, actually, so let me ask, because I actually want to know, how many of you don't lift weights enough, like don't train yourself enough? So say need to lift weights more. So I know Debbie mentioned it. Someone else mentioned Janet needs to lift weights more. Put below if you feel like you need to lift weights more. You're gonna do more resistance training. So put it below. Let's get on the program, ladies. Let's support each other. Exactly. And it's very good that I have the Love Yourself Fierce workout challenge right now, because people get to work out in that. But yes, if you are one of those that you're like, man, I got to get back into it, put it below, because it's important to get yourself going on that again. Okay. Carolyn says need to lift weights more. Shariza says lift weight more. Janet, Talisa, awesome. Okay. So let's talk about what you can do. Okay. What can you do in regards to all of this understanding around belly fat deposit? And it is more complex, to be honest. There is more behind it, but I'm not getting into it. Otherwise, you're going to get into, again, a science class of like how things break down, like which type of expression of alphas within your belly fat cells. Like there is more to it, but I'm just giving you more of a generality. Okay. So we're going to go to practicality, because my goal is not as I'm not here to teach you medical school. I'm here to teach you as a coach how to be the healthiest you. So we're going to move to practicalities now. So what can you do? So the first thing is you have to control stress. Control stress. Now I talked about this, but we're going to go into this deeper. Because the belly fat receptors respond to epinephrine, norepinephrine, and potentially cortisol. This is why we really need to kind of control and figure out what's going on in the belly fat area. Okay. So what is the difference between epinephrine, norepinephrine, and cortisol? Epinephrine and norepinephrine is secreted in acute situations, and it acts super fast in your system. Cortisol is excreted at a much slower rate. That's why cortisol is in your system if you have chronic stress. But they all are excreted by the adrenal gland, meaning they all are functioning under a stress response. Okay. So, you're okay. I see people like more. I need to lift more weights. Exactly. Yes. Debbie says, thanks, coach. Can't wait. Awesome. Hi, Angie. Thanks for popping in. So we have to control stress because we know cortisol impacts more fat distribution. And we know that epinephrine and norepinephrine, if it attaches to certain alpha 2 receptors within our belly fat, now we are inhibiting fat lipolysis, meaning it stops fat release, which is why we call stubborn fat, right? Stubborn fat, because now it can't release it, it's inhibited it. So how can we control stress, okay, with that understanding of that biology within our system? First thing is controlling your physical lifestyle stresses, physically what's happening in your world. If you have a high stress job, or you have a lot of things in your life that is super high stress, you need to maybe take a step back and ask yourself, is this worth your health? I'll be honest, this is why I stepped away from teaching. I stepped away from teaching many years ago. It was extremely stressful. You have to ask yourself if the lifestyle choices of what you're making right now, is it worth the amount of cortisol stress in your system? Because cortisol stress and all of these other hormones I spoke about can create a lot of diseases and a lot of accumulation of fat within your body. Right. And I know a lot of people, as they age, they start to understand this and they start to cut back on certain things, or they start to, they rather make slightly less money and they have extra day off or certain things like that. So this is just some things for you to think about. Okay. So there's physical stress you need to reduce. The second type of stress you need to reduce, 29 eyeballs, woohoo. People are finding me. Second type of stress you need to reduce is stress from food. And you're like, of course, Clarice would never go for a live without talking about nutrition, right? So, of course, stress from food. So, what is one of the biggest stressors from food? You guys know this. Inflammation markers. Inflammation markers, things that cause massive inflammation in your system. So one of the biggest stressors for food comes from inflammation markers that will raise inflammation in your system. And I want to speak about this because I was just speaking to one of my clients about this. You don't have to be allergic to a food to have it inflame your body, just so you're aware. Just because you're not allergic to that ingredient does not mean that it does not inflame your system. So therefore, you have to learn more about what actually inflames your systems. And there are middle of the ground ingredients. Now, because I'm recently having so many new transformation clients, obviously I'm having discussions on different things with different people, is that there are middle ground products, meaning like some ingredients and chemicals. I do understand why they are there, and they are approved by the Food and Drug Administration. They are in small quantities harmless for your body. It's true. Otherwise, they can't put it in your food. And it is also true, they need to put it in your food in order to prevent it from going bad. Otherwise, you might die from bacterial infestation of the product. So it's not that they're all just like being bad people or anything like that. There is reasons why certain products have to have certain things in there. But what I will say to you is if products are having multiple chemicals within it in small quantities, it may not impact your system. But if you have many of these types of products throughout your week, throughout your day, that is occurring in the multiple again and again and again and again, you have to think, what is it doing in your system and what is the impact of it? When they say, well, this chemical at high levels will obviously cause harm, but in general, in most food, it is not considered safe. So this can be argued a lot. I mean, I've even seen on Instagram people saying, oh, people who talk about inflammation markers, it's not true because in small quantities, it's not actually harmful. So I think you have to think for yourself of course, in small quantities, it's not harmful. But if you eat a certain way and you eat things over and over again in your body, over and over again, and in this product, in this salad, there's this inflammatory marker, and in this thing here, in your bar, there's an inflammatory marker, that in your protein shake, there's another inflammatory marker, then they add up, right? And again, they're not going to kill, it's not going to kill you. I agree. It's not going to kill you. But what does it do to your system, and what type of signal is it sending your body? And we have to remember what I spoke about above is your body has a series of response to epinephrine, norepinephrine, and cortisol. And so if you are creating more stress than needed in your body, and you struggle with belly fat, and you are aging, and you are in menopause, and estrogen is declining, you're playing a losing game. And so why I speak about this is because I know that sometimes we may be like, yeah, I know. Dairy, wheat. Okay, I hear Clarice speak about that. I'll take away those inflammation markers. But I'm telling you, there is a lot more inflammation markers in so many of your food that you're not even aware of. So if you want to control stress, you need to control inflammation from your food as one of the ways to bring down stress in your body, right? And so I'm curious how many of you watching believe you need to control inflammation more. Put control inflammation, okay? Put control inflammation, okay? Um, your body can't get rid of it as you age as efficiently. Yeah, exactly. Middle ground products are gums, like guar gum, Karo bean gums, like all of these thickeners. They are even in dairy-free type products. They're not inflammatory by nature, but what it can do when too many gums come together in your digestive gut is it can slow down your digestive process. If it slows down your digestive process, it can create an unnecessary stress in your body that then impacts your digestive tract, right? So by nature, gums are not inflammatory, and overall, depending on the degree and amounts of it, it is okay. So this is why what I'm trying to say is not every ingredient, and those of you who I teach that I say to you is kind of an inflammatory marker, is maybe it's not an inflammatory marker, but the cascading effect of what it then does in your body then eventually causes a stress response. That's what I mean, okay? And we can argue this. There's a lot of arguments out there about like, but that's not really inflammatory. I'm like, I know, but what it does to your system eventually causes a stress response. And that's what I'm trying to teach is that if these things enter your body multiple times, too many times, you could cause the stress that you don't need in your body, right? So I know a lot of you say control inflammation, control inflammation, control inflammation. Like Shannon says, yes, you've been studying gut health. Exactly. So there's a lot that has to go into controlling inflammation, right? Um, yeah, and you're getting a colonoscopy. Yes, yes, I know as you age, you need to get those done more often. So, yeah, so there's that part. And then another part of controlling stress with food is balancing your nutrition. So this part of it is relating to what does your body actually need, right? So again, if we go back to the scientific realm of fat metabolism and when fat metabolism occurs and when does it not, if you understand that you have to have a certain amount of protein, carbs, and fat in your system to have a very balanced, ratio in your body, you want it as balanced as possible to reduce as much stress in your body, right? So if you are highly imbalanced in your nutrition, you're still going to cause some stress response and your body will act accordingly, right? Like for example, you do need carbs. You do need carbs to maybe build more muscle. But if you have presence of too much carbs, again, then that presence of too much carb could take away from your fat lipolysis process, right? So we kind of have to look at what is actually happening in the balance of nutrition. You have to really understand where the roles are, what the roles of protein, carbs, and fat is, and what kind of signals they are sending each other. And as well, like when you intake carbs, it impacts insulin level, right? So remember I spoke about insulin being an effector of belly fat. So you do have to recognize, okay, different types of molecules, different ways of how I eat is going to impact my total body's response. This is kind of why, again, it's a little bit complex because not only is it the balance of protein, carbs, and fat, it is the way your body metabolizes it. So let's just use, I am going to use maybe Vivian as an example. Okay. Vivian is ectomorph. She's naturally very, very lean. Okay. She may have potentially less alpha 2 receptors, genetically speaking, meaning she actually can release fat faster than most people can. So that will impact the way that her macros have to be aligned and distributed, okay? Whereas someone who's an endomorph, who has potentially more propensity to actually store fat, potentially more presence of alpha 2 receptors that stops lipolysis, that actually doesn't let you release fat, that will impact what your macro distribution should be. At least people who really understand macros. This is why I say you do have to have a really good understanding on macros and actually understand how to balance your protein, carbs, and fat, because that in the end affects whether your body is responding in its optimal state. Okay. So how many of you believe you need to have better menopausal macros? If you believe you need to have better menopausal macros, put menopausal macros below. And this is all relating to decreasing stress in your body.
If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. Listening on Spotify, tap that 5-star rating. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave a quick review. It really helps the show reach more women.
So other areas to reduce stress is you need to make sure you have enough sleep, like I talked about, and you need to make sure you control your mindset, okay? Controlling your mindset is extremely important. So controlling your mindset, believe it or not, right? Your mindset will determine whether you secrete epinephrine, norepinephrine, and cortisol. Those three hormones really impact the signaling system within your whole system. Okay, let's be honest, but within belly fat. If you have high levels of epinephrine, norepinephrine, and cortisol long term, because cortisol goes long term, whereas epinephrine, norepinephrine is short term, you're going to create more activation of androgenic, alpha androgenic receptors. So that's why those of you who are high stress people, control your mindset. Ask yourself, is this worth it to get stressed about? And if you don't know techniques, get help. You know, like Melanie, we talked about it yesterday, things that we need to work on in your mindset. Debbie, we talk a lot about your mindset, a lot. Lisa, we talk about mindset a lot. There's a few other people I'm working with right now. Oh, Michelle, she's a business, she owns a hair salon. And so I work with you guys on this, not because it's fluffy. Mindset exercises are super important, and it does impact your belly fat. I want to give you an example here. A really great example, Angelina Everett. She's not on here. She's the one who posted that she dropped from extra large down to a size medium in her red pants. Who remembers her post? Her post that she posted about dropping from 2X down to medium. Okay. So she was, without getting to specifics, there were specific things she's doing within her training that I knew that she had already lost like 50 something or 50 or 60 inches off her body. But there were some things in her metrics and in her weight that I was like noticing. And I told her, I said, I want you for a couple weeks not to do these certain things. And I know she knows this. Things started to happen, right? And this is why you sometimes need a coach. You need a coach because she couldn't see that. And she messaged me and says, I think I was like putting too much stress on myself for change to happen. And I'm like, yeah, You were, and this is why. And this is why, because the mindset and even certain things you do that causes increased stress in your body actually affects your total weight loss journey, your fat loss journey, and whether you can lose part of that belly fat. So it is more than just like, oh, I have to eat less, or I need to over exercise. No, 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 no. There's a lot more complex things you have to do here, and hopefully you understand, and through this live, or if you work with a coach, that the coach actually understands enough about hormones that they can actually give proper recommendations based on what they're seeing. And so this is why for my own clients, if I message you, sometimes I ask you, Sherry, I recently asked you, and then I asked another people, rate yourself. Tell me how you're doing. What's your mindset at? Tell me right? I did this to a few of you. I was like, tell me what's your mindset at? Rate yourself. How's your stress level, right? Because what I'm trying to gauge is we want to reduce stress as much as we can in the body due to the biological processes I explained at the beginning of the live, right? Is this making sense to all of you? I'm hoping this does, because a lot of us just think, I need to eat healthy and I just need to exercise and I'm going to drop my belly fat. And when the belly fat doesn't drop, you're disappointed. But there's a lot more behind this, right? So I just want to make sure that you guys understand this. Bonnie says, wow, thank you. 30 eyeballs, woohoo! Thank you for watching. Marcella, Martha, Wanda, thank you for joining in. Okay, so like I said, if you are like, I need to better understand how to control stress in my body, you can put control stress, because this could relate to many things, right? Controlling stress, physical stress, food stress, inflammation markers, balancing nutrition, macros, lifestyle factors like sleep, and controlling mindset. These all impact stress levels within your body. So maybe you need to control stress better in your body, and you can put that below. Okay, number 2. So this is the interesting one. We're going to come back to the androgenic receptors, okay? So your body naturally has more alpha androgenic receptors in your belly cells, okay? Belly fat cells. This you cannot change in the sense of like, well, how much you have there, like the propensity of the alphas in the androgenic receptors, that's going to be in your belly fat no matter what. So the goal is, well, 1, control stress. Number 1, we talked about. Number 2 is how do you activate more beta androgenic receptors? So for those of you who are just popping in, is how do we activate the other receptors, beta 3 particularly, that actually encourages lipolysis, which is fat, breaking down of fat. Okay, so ready for this? And all of you are like waiting on your seat, and you're like, oh, Clarice spoke about this all the time, and I know this. Yes, you do. So in order to activate more beta androgenic receptors, you need to exercise. Hello, you're like, what? Of course, that's simple. Yeah. So you activate more beta androgenic receptors when you exercise and when you lift weights and all of that. Because when you exercise, you actually release adrenaline and noradrenaline into your body. And then it actually will preferentially, during exercise, activate beta androgenic receptors in your muscle tissues and your skeletal tissues. And then obviously in the fat cells surrounding that. So it actually makes you be in the zone of possibly releasing fat faster. Now, you might have known this in terms of, I knew I should exercise, but in a scientific basis, this is the reason. You do need to exercise so you can encourage beta androgenic receptors to express itself, to be able to go, hey, let's start to break down fats in our body, okay? Also, regular exercise can help with sort of like increasing insulin sensitivity as well. So this is relating to the other part of what I spoke about, hormones. If you are increasing in age, your propensity for insulin resistance increases. So the goal is to improve insulin sensitivity and prevent insulin resistance. Exercise and weightlifting and all of that helps improve insulin sensitivity. which means you can be more receptive to take up glucose, to take up sugar in your body, so that that does not get circulated back into your system and then obviously towards belly fat, right? So this is really important in that you need to exercise so that you have better expression of fat lipolysis. But also another part to this is you can improve and activate beta androgenic receptors through better nutrition. Okay. Now, I'm not going to get into all of this right now, but better nutrition means that the way you know how to make sure you have certain nutrition in your profiling, and I'll just give you one simple, but I'm not going to go into all of it today in my own clients. It's kind of why I recommend things a certain way to you guys is omegas, right? Omegas help with sort of like the healthier fats entering the system and how it activates some of these receptors. It can help you with potentially losing fat faster in your body. And some of you might be like, okay, so you can eat more healthy fats and then it helps you with losing fat. It's kind of like this, like, really? And it's like, yeah, sort of, right? What did I always say about making sure your macros are in place? You need healthy fats because healthy fats allow for lowered inflammation in your body. Healthy fats allow for better absorption of nutrition, which you need a lot of important things like vitamin D. And healthy fats is the preferential energy source for women over 40 in weightlifting. So that's why you have to understand your nutrition to encourage the better expression of these receptors to start to bring down fat in your body and belly fat. So I'm not going to get into because there's a big topic behind the nutrition of activation of beta androgenic receptors. So what I will say is, again, if you're like, I need to have better understanding of nutrition, then put nutrition below. If you have trouble losing belly fat or you have a lot of stubborn fat areas, a lot of it comes down to making sure you have a good training program and good nutrition and proper healthy mindset, right? So put like good nutrition below if you're like, I need to understand my nutrition better. Okay, so that's the second way that you can really help yourself start to bring down belly fat and fat in your body. And then the third one, okay, again, it can kind of repeat some of the 1 and 2, but it's going to be a third one. So the third one is to increase metabolism, okay? As you age, your metabolism starts to drop a little bit, partially and mainly because of loss of muscle mass, right? So I spoke about this earlier. So we need to make the effort to prevent this declining metabolism by working hard to build more muscle. I was just doing an assessment of one of our new clients yesterday, and she was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how weak I've been. And, she used to teach Pilates and all of this stuff, and she used to be so fit. And she had stopped working out for a couple years due to some situations in her life. But you lose muscle very fast as you age, okay? So be very cautious. Those of you who are at this age range, if you have a workout program, don't skip. Do your workouts. Make sure you are building muscle, okay? Because you need to get your metabolism back. And in terms of specifics to losing belly fat, okay? So you've heard this before. You will lose fat all over your body. Lipolysis and the way lipolysis moves to the fat distribution, like it basically releases fatty acids and glycerol into your bloodstream. Therefore, your whole body actually loses fat all over. Okay. You cannot spot reduce. You cannot reduce from just one area. Okay. And so it releases all over. So we have to be very cautious that the type of workouts we do has the right amounts of compound movements. So compound movements means that they're big lifts, they involve many parts of the body, and that it moves multiple things in your body. So we encourage more usage of everything in your body because that's how fat loss occurs. So your coach, your trainer will design it in a certain way. Those of you who are my fitness challenge right now, It's so funny reading some of your comments, and some of you comment on my Loom video, like with these like surprise faces and like, oh my goodness, oh wow, these are so hard, So you are welcome. You are welcome for these awesome compound movements I give you, because the better you can actually do these compound movements and these overall big movements in your body, the more activation you get for muscles, the development of muscles, and the burning of calories. More calories burned, more activation of the process for building muscle, the more likely you have better metabolism in your body. Okay, so is it that abdominal exercises are not helpful? So here's my response to you. Abdominal exercises are very important for a stronger core. I will always give you ab moves. Those of you who are in my program, you get ab moves in my program. You will get that. But just doing abdominal exercises is not going to reduce belly fat. Okay, let's be honest. It may help you tone up your midsection and kind of be tighter, which is nice in terms of the look of the belly area, which is still good. It tones up your midsection. But if you want to then additionally lose belly fat in that area, you need to make sure that your overall programming, your overall workout program has really good compound moves that really focuses on increasing muscle mass in the system, and helps with the right hormone signals, I guess, to put it simply. Okay. So how many of you feel like you need the better workout programs? Put it below. So put it below, and you need better muscle building programs. Put it below, better muscle building programs. So this is just to help you guys understand, because a lot of times people are looking for these secrets to lose belly fat, or like, what's the secret move I can do? Or, like, do I have to do so much cardio or stuff like that? And some cardio is important for sure, but it's this overall that you really need in order to drop total fat in your body. Yes. So I guess the biggest thing, and so those are the three things, and they encompass a lot. So the three strategies to reducing belly fat: control stress in your body, okay, which involved many things, including food, nutrition, menopausal macros, and inflammation markers. Number two, activate more beta androgenic receptors, which is going to be through regular exercise, proper lifting programs, and good nutrition, making sure you understand like the combination of different foods and things like that. And number three is increase metabolism, which is through, again, proper muscle building programs. Okay. So that honestly, in essence, is the what I wanted to cover. There's a lot within what I said. And if you feel like this is also confusing, here's what I will say. Okay. On your own, if you are doing it on your own, it is okay. You can still trial run and trial and error. But the hardest part around belly fat loss, why it's so difficult for so many women, is that you may gain a knowledge in one area. Oh, Clarice says I need to eat omega, so I'm going to go eat omegas. Awesome. You're going to go do that. And she said, I need to go exercise more, so I need to go lift weights more. So you go lift weights more. Awesome. But what the problem I find most people is you guys, a lot of people don't understand the synergistic situation happening in your body. And this is where a coach and someone who really understands programming, it comes into play, because you need to take into account many things. It's not just go take more omegas, go lift more weights. It's because there's other things involved that you have to make sure has to synergistically work together. So if you're like, and it gets complex because of the hormones, right? Because of estrogen, because of cortisol, because of insulin, and then understanding where the macros come in. So what I'm saying is, if you are new, if you're in my program, you're fine, because like I said to many of my clients before, I can't sit there 2 hours in a session with you and just like describe this. This is why it's part of their curriculum to come and watch my lives. They need to watch my lives so that they understand why I tell them certain things. If you are not in my programs, or you're kind of one of those who've been struggling with fat or belly fat or a pooch for a long time, and you really want to know how to do it, put programs below, because the key to losing belly fat is a multi-dimensional approach that takes into account many synergistic things together so that you can drop it down. It's not that simple, okay? And so if you really believe like I need to lose that belly fat, I need to have a better synergistic view of what's going on in my body, put programs below, okay? Awesome. So I hope that helped. I hope that didn't go way over your head. I simplified it as much as I can. This is not medical school, so I didn't want to go crazy on you. Good luck to all the fierce, love yourself, fierce woman challenge. Keep encouraging each other, and hopefully this added lots of value to all of you. And if you found this helpful, recommend people into the group, invite them to the group, tell them about the lives, or tell them about my YouTube channel. Okay? Love you all lots, and have a great rest of your week.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fierce and Fit Mentor podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit the follow button on Spotify, subscribe on YouTube, or wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. If something in this episode resonated with you, please leave a review or share it with a friend who'd love it too. Your support means the world and helps us reach more amazing women like you. Until next time, stay fierce, stay fit, and let's keep building your most powerful self.